This is it, boys. After 22 long years, a true quality sequel to the original trilogy of Crash games has arrived. A few of you know that my favorite game of all time is Spyro the Dragon. Well, what you don't know is that Crash Bandicoot 2 is in my top 5. So, suffice to say, I was pretty hyped for this. The gameplay trailers look pretty solid, maybe a little too open-ended in terms of level design, but the recent demo inspired a lot of confidence. And I'm here to tell you that it's a great game. I'm honestly a little surprised how good it is, especially since it was developed by Toys for Bob, the guys who made the Skylanders games and more recently the Spyro remakes. Makes me wonder what Vicarious Visions has been making all this time. Spyro 4 maybe? Well, I won't waste any more of your time with speculation. Let's break down how Toys for Bob has rekindled the old Bandicoot magic while managing to throw their own unique spin to the 3D platformer genre. Full disclosure here. At the time of writing this, I haven't yet completed the game. If that makes you stop watching, I get it. I really do. The reason I'm telling you this is because I'm confident that I've seen everything this game has to offer, and sadly, I don't have the subscribers to carry this video into relevancy, unlike, say, Nakey Jakey, who despite making a Last of Us Part 2 video long after anyone still cares, he's gotten well over 1 million views on that video. And he deserves it. It's a great watch. But I've got to release this as soon as possible. If that upsets you, I'm sorry, but never mind that, let's move on. First, let's talk about the controls. They're insanely smooth. Smoother and faster than the original trilogy, yet still precise enough to make micro adjustments in midair. You'll be happy to know that Crash has all of his moves from Crash 2, plus an improved double jump from 3. This pretty much is the perfect moveset for a platformer like this. Sliding and double jumping gives you crazy air and maintains all of your momentum, which is just inherently satisfying. The double jump does slightly reduce the overall difficulty of the game, and based on the roughly 80% of the game I played at the time of writing this, the difficulty of the game is somewhere between Crash 1 and 2. No ridiculously pixel-perfect jumps like Crash 1, and much more challenging than the piss-easy Crash 3 levels. The actual platforming levels anyway. The second motorcycle level is hard as fuck. Yes, come on, what? No, what the fuck? Come on, no, you piece of shit, no, you fucking... Most of the difficulty in Crash 4 comes from completing optional objectives for gems, including breaking all the crates, finding the hidden gem, and beating the level with 3 or less deaths. Getting all of the gems in a level unlocks a costume for Crash or Coco. And as far as I can tell, that's it. Maybe there's a secret ending for getting them all like previous games? I don't know. The bonus levels are also significantly harder than previous games, which I definitely am a fan of. Since there's no consequence for dying in them, why not? For the few of you Crash purists out there, there's a classic mode in this game that gives you lives. Personally, I've never liked lives as a game mechanic, but at least it's there for you guys. Another thing you'll notice is Crash is a bit floatier, which I don't mind personally, but might bother some people. The last change, and this one actually does lower the skill ceiling a bit more, is the removal of the high jump spin technique. Most of you won't even notice because it was a secret move in Crash 2 and 3. Basically, if you spinned as you were jumping, you'd go even higher. This move made certain sections much easier, and in the case of Crash 3, was often a much more useful move than the double jump, because the double jump removed all of your momentum when you used it. The main new additions to the classic Crash formula are the new mask characters, which are basically power-ups, and the new playable characters. Slight spoiler for the game here. The 3 are Tawna, Dingodile, and Cortex. I'll save the masks for the level design section as they're deeply tied to that aspect, so let's talk about the extended cast. Despite her atrocious redesign, I mean, Jesus man, she looks like a steampunk reject with lesbian wine ant hair. And her personality's cringy too, dude, what were they thinking?
Whoa, rat chainsaw. Aw, kawaii. Ooh, must have left my jacket in the Bermuda Quadrangle.
Rule 34 has salvaged her design a bit though. Kids, avert your eyes.
I don't know what this is, but it's kind of hot.
Somehow, the Tawna levels are actually pretty fun. She controls just like Crash and Coco, minus sliding. Instead, she's got a hook shot that can take down smaller enemies from a distance, break hidden boxes in the background, and grapple to fixed points in the level. She can also wall jump in specific areas. These abilities don't change the gameplay too much, but that means the level design doesn't have to suffer to meet her gimmick, unlike the next character. Dingo Dial sucks. Literally. Alright, that was a shitty joke. You can dislike the video for that. So yeah, he's a fat guy with a vacuum. The vacuum gimmick just slows down the gameplay. You can suck up TNT and shoot at stuff. That's the extent of it. I've only done 2 of his levels because they were boring, so maybe they get better, but I doubt it. The Cortex levels are pretty solid. They're completely focused around his ray gun, which can transform enemies into platforms, normal or bouncy. He can't double jump, but he's got a mid-air dash that can cover some serious gaps. The animation looks goofy as hell, but at least it's fun. Hard to say if the gimmick holds up well enough that every Cortex level will be worth playing, but the 2 I tried were fun enough. Now, the elephant in the room I haven't addressed is what happens at the end of each of these characters' levels. After the intro level introducing each of the new characters' mechanics, the new characters' levels will show up on the world map spread across the worlds. What the game doesn't tell you is that each of these levels is only half as long as the standard Crash Coco level. The second half is literally the same level you've already played that the level icon was adjacent to. Of the ones I played, these sections are only the second half or last third of the original level with slight changes to crate locations, making the level more difficult, like extra TNT and nitro crates. So it's not as repetitive as it sounds, but I just don't like this choice. This game is already twice as long as any of the original 3 games, it didn't need the extra padding. Which brings us to level design. The Crash Bandicoot series has always been the natural evolution of 2D platformers, in my eyes. So it sucks that every other 3D platformer is built off of Super Mario 64's level design. As much as I love collectathons, I also really enjoy a tightly designed, challenging linear experience. Outside of a bunch of sequels ranging from shit smear bad to actually surprisingly decent in the 2000s, Crash 4 is basically the first quality linear 3D platformer in over 20 years. In a game like this, level design is just as important as the controls, and I think Toys for Bob did a great job with this as well. This is another aspect that, sadly, I know purists will complain about, because in the first hour of the game, I, myself, wasn't entirely sold on the tweaking to the core of Crash Bandicoot's level design, but essentially, every level of this game plays out the same way. No more dedicated level themes like boulder chases, riding Polar, or any of the shitty ones from Crash 3. Instead, these levels are now just small sections of standard platforming levels. The basic design of every Crash level is essentially the same in this game. A mixture of side-scrolling and front-to-back hallways with various hazards, enemies, and bottomless pits between you and the goal. The main difference is in Crash 4, and this is the main tweak to the design, is that the hallways have been significantly expanded, and the density of platforming challenges or threats has been reduced. On one hand, this means that there's a new spectacle aspect to the game, as you can see with these vibrant, colorful, and dynamic backgrounds. On the other hand, the levels feel a lot more empty. I think most of you won't even notice, but to me, this is the death of Crash as a pure platformer. Now there's a slight adventure aspect to it with these huge wide levels, which is another big difference by the way. The levels are twice as long. And there's a lot of hidden secrets placed to the side of these hallways, which break an unspoken rule of Crash level design by hiding things off screen that you either have to move the camera to see or just make a leap of faith. That being said, what makes up for these shortcomings is that every level offers some kind of variety to the simple, tried and tested Super Mario Bros. School of level design. The first kind of variety is the aforementioned themed levels. The boulder, jet ski, and polar bear levels are now just small sections of the much larger ones in this game. I really don't mind this personally, even though the level Unbearable from Crash 2 is one of my favorites in the series. There's also a new rail grinding mechanic that is highly reminiscent of Ratchet & Clank. These are pretty fun, if a bit unforgiving, because the animation to switch between grinding and hanging from a rail is just a tad too long, which will lead to a lot of frustrating deaths if you're going for 100%. Another thing that's been cut is the skull routes, or death routes, from Crash 2 and 3. I actually am pretty disappointed about this. They were a great challenge in the old games. For you potential new fans, the death routes were special, harder mini levels that you could only get to if you hadn't died yet by the time you reached the platform. In Crash 4, these have been replaced by flashback levels, which are unlocked by grabbing a VHS tape in each level, which disappears if you've died before reaching it. These flashback levels are actually pretty cool. They're essentially 2D platforming puzzle challenges. You play as Crash going through Cortex's deadly tests before escaping his lab in the first game. Each level has a unique gauntlet of floating boxes, TNT, and nitro crates that you've got to navigate and, hopefully, break them all for the platinum medal. That's the gist of it. Each one's also got a classic Crash track playing in the background, which is a nice touch. I think there's a certain charm to their simplicity, as they're a great showcase for the smooth controls and your skill, but maybe some of you might be bored by the same thing over and over again. The other type of level variety are these new mask characters that you collect over the course of the game. Each one gives you a special Mario-style power-up that significantly alters the platforming experience. To be clear, these masks are only given to you for specific sections of the level, much like the jet ski or polar. This is because the level is designed around the power-up. For example, the blue mask lets you travel between timelines, which in gameplay terms means it phases boxes and platforms in and out of existence on a tap of R2. So obviously the platforming has to be built around this mechanic. It's definitely not the first game to do this, but Crash 4 does it well. The purple mask is my favorite, turning Crash into a tornado that can glide across huge gaps and deflect projectiles, but detonates TNT on contact. About halfway through the game, you unlock mirror levels, which are just mirrored levels, with a visual filter placed on top. Seriously. More pointless padding to further annoy completionists. Just skip them. So I guess the point I'm trying to make with the level design is that despite each level being twice as long as any from the OG trilogy, there's enough variety in the gameplay that they don't feel bloated. The only problem I have with their length is that if you're going for 100%, missing a box or two is twice as painful. But overall, Toys for Bob did an excellent job.
You manage our affairs with such poise.
Naturally, as do you. Ah. Barf.
This is the game we've been waiting for. The future of Crash Bandicoot as a franchise weighs entirely on the sales of this game. So if you love Crash, buy this game. As long as you go into it with a somewhat open mind, and not like a nostalgia-blinded fanboy who can't handle change, you won't be disappointed. There's even a lot of cool Easter eggs for longtime fans of the series that I won't spoil here. This is still the solid, challenging 3D platforming experience you expect, but with some modern tweaks. No exploitative microtransactions, just a fun single-player game. Put your money where your mouth is, and support a brighter future for this industry. And Activision, for the love of God, make Spyro 4. It's about time. Hey guys, if you liked the video, give it a like, subscribe, comment, helps with the algorithm, all that. I mean, I respond to comments anyway, as you guys probably already know, but for any newcomers, I'll give you a like, respond, whatever, any of that attention seeking you need. No, But now that it's October, gonna tackle some horror games. I'm gonna make that Resident Evil Remake review that's highly requested. We'll probably tackle Silent Hill 2, and finally, a proper sequel to Amnesia: The Dark Descent is coming out this month. So, I'm definitely gonna check that out. And, you know, if there's time, maybe I'll get another horror game. And then, of course, next month, everyone's gonna be hyped for Cyberpunk. So, I'm gonna be covering some on that. Yeah, I don't know. That's about it. See you next time.